Well, true to the theme, the unexpected happening. So let's see how that goes. Murin, how's that sounding right now?
Sounds good right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So do interrupt me if that happens again. Not sure what I'll do, but I could move closer to the router. Yeah, this crossroads, this creative play. Maybe I'll take a survey since I don't know everyone present. How many people in the room have had some formal carrying a koan for a while?
The formal what?
Formal practice, working with a formal koan. Yeah. How many are newer to practice and don't have much experience at all with koan? Yeah, great. And how many, when they see a koan coming, run the other direction?
I have enough coffee. I don't
Me.
need.
Right. So that's good for me to know because I hope it meets everybody today what I'm about to say. It's a lively time for Zen. Speaking of intermingling, in that we say the Rinzai form of Zen, formal koan study. The Soto school that I belong to uses koans as stories, but not so. Not those definitions really break down and are no longer true to how we're actually. The Soto school is taking on much more of a Rinzai flavor, and the Rinzai school adopting much more of a approach. So, just for those who might be new to koans, those are those beguiling exchanges between teachers and students that at first don't make any sense. And a one that we might think of classically is what is the sound of one hand clapping? And the student is given this koan to work with, to take into the meditation and to bring back the response, the embodied response to the koan. And you might travel with koan for weeks, months, or even years. And in the formal tradition, there are 300 free collections of 100 that are the classical collection. That takes a lot of time to do that from beginning to end. So in our sangha, we have dabbled, if you will, in this tradition by having what we call koan sangha. And each week we bring out a new koan, and we learn, more importantly, not about any particular koan per se, but how to meet the world with the koan mind. That is what's most essential. And whatever Zen practice we are doing, discovering what that mind of the koan is opens everything up. Opens everything up. Because it shifts us into exactly what the verses of faith and mind are pointing to this morning. Right? It says to let go. If we are practicing with a koan, we have to let go of what we think we know. It's hard for ourselves. We have to let go wanting to be certain, wanting to have something to hold on to. That energy is rooted in our narrow view and ultimately fear. So a koan is a crossroads that says there's another way. And that way brings us to a deep encounter with quiet, stopping and the cessation of that kind of way of trying to navigate the world, dualistic way. And it moves us towards the perfection, experience of the perfection. But when we take up a koan, we don't start there. They're incredibly frustrating. And I would say half my sangha hates them. And that's all part of it. It's all part of it. Like, yes, here's free. But a koan, it starts out as a real impossible paradox. It's irritating, much in the way that our experience of modern life is. Should I stay? Should I go? Should I care for myself here or care for this other person? And the koans of our times as human beings, the koans of ecological destruction and social fragmentation, they all have this impossible paradox. And so the mind of the koan helps us leap beyond the trap, that duality. We put aside the usual answers and we open up into something larger. It is the mind of the middle way. And if we develop a mind for the koan in everyday life, we start to see it everywhere. It's not limited to Zen at all. As I was putting this together, I thought of the great statement by Yogi Berra, who asked a koan and solved it in one sentence. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. Right? Let's koan ask and answer it right away. It's such the spirit of it. Don't get caught. Move right into action. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. So I want to talk a little bit about Backpocket for those not familiar, and some may resonate with you, some not. And you may also discover the koan you're already carrying. And that's what we do in our Sangha, really work with the koans that are emerging in everyday life, along with these classes that come from the tradition. And there's just really, anyone can work. There are 3 tips I like to give. One is, and this is not always something you have control over, but the koan has to be interesting. It has to, what I call, they have juice. There's something beguiling about it. Juice can include frustration for sure. What is that? I don't know what that is, but I want to know. That's enough for a koan to have the energy that's needed. We don't care about it. And that's hard. There's no relationship. We need to have a relationship. The second thing is it's not just read, something's not given in the soul or responded to in that. You have to travel. You have to take hence the back pocket. You have to actually carry the koan around, refer to it, meet the world with it, drop it into your meditation. And not with a deliberative one, but the felt sense of its push. And the third part is a little harder sometimes, depending upon where we're practicing. We have to bring the koan response to someone else. Usually that's the teacher, but someone who's going to be outside your usual way of thinking, because that confronts what comes from the koan. So those 3 things, if you have those 3 things, then you can travel with the koan. And guaranteed, it will reveal something. So I have 3 categories of koans and a few suggestions. And I'm going to tell a story about one of my students, and it might anchor what I'm getting at. Here are some koans that are really wonderful phrases that we can carry along and meet life with, that are for medicine for the complaint. I don't know if any of you have a complaining mind, suffer from, or your mind is serene and peaceful, everything you meet. I don't know anyone like that. So it's wonderful for judgmental and the complaining mind state. And this one I picked up at a long retreat. I attributed to Reb Anderson, who repeated it over and over again this month-long retreat. Meet the world with this phrase. Thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. Now carry that along. Imagine your week. The frustration with the boss at work, the news article, the friend who didn't show up, the next election. Thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. Now that's going to be a crossroads, right? It's going to push something forward. Clarify, what does that mean? Can you live that way? Is that possible? Does it mean complacency? You actually have to experience to see that it actually frees us up to respond. That's one I give out. Another one is similar. For the mind, I think there's something lacking, missing inside, missing outside, and simply nothing missing. To go through the day and occasionally look around, nothing missing. How about today sitting zazen? Nothing missing. In the evening when the list isn't done, nothing missing. Unhappy with a friend, nothing missing. These koans, these back pocket koans, are really the ambassadors, if you will, of Zazen. So many of us struggle with, how do I bring Zazen into everyday life? Well, this is the way. It isn't that we transport a peaceful mind, it's that we bring the koan of Zazen itself into the particulars of the world. Beautiful being a layperson. So much rich practice. There's another group of koans, and I'm gathering up, these are the years of practice, what people have told me has resonated. This is one that these koans that move us into a larger mind. And I had a student who traveled for a couple of years with this koan. She just stayed with it. It mattered, kept giving life to whatever she was doing. And it's, what is this? What is this? Very simple. But again, drinking tea in the morning, out in the garden, protest on the street with a friend or a spouse. What is this? Opens it up. Opens it up. And we stay in that not know it and see what arrives. Another one that was another student carried for some time, I think for an ongoing period, was just one word, which was yes. She came up with that herself, which what was most alive for her, because her world was full of no, struggling with chronic pain and other conflicts with family. So her koan was yes. And every time she got into one of those spaces of the impossible moment, which was no, she just said yes. And everything flows from that. There are also koans that help break us out of our isolated self, which then can collude with quite easily. I'm just sitting on my cushion on my little island. This one I particularly like, especially it goes back to the complaining mind. It's easy to see what's wrong in the world. Most of us have a good list of what's wrong. This is good medicine for the activists and all of us who wish things were different. It's a single phrase. Meet those conditions and say, good thing, I'm here to help. Wow, climate change. Good thing, I'm here to help. Friend in crisis. Good thing, I'm here to help. Good thing, I'm here to help. And to see again, we have to bring that koan into life, what emerges. We have to practice. We might not like it. We might have another voice inside that says, I don't want to help. That's someone else's job, not my job. So a lot of koan work involves frustration. So something inside us resolves. Another one that was koan, Backpocket koan, that one of our students, a special ed teacher, very stressful environment these days. Many of the teachers, bless you, out there who are teaching kids, less and less resources, more and more distress for young people. Too much for teachers. So a lot was coming at her. Incredible on the body and the mind, and being asked to do more. So her koan, which she's carried now for almost a year and a half, but she says it just keeps informing me. And this comes from my teacher, Kyogen, who would always ask people, what is yours to do? So the student just simply met all these conditions, stresses and strains at work. So what's mine to do? And she said she would sit with that. Immediately it would be clear. I cannot fix that situation, but I can do this. And she continues to travel with alone. I hope that gives a little bit of a flavor of how, many of you perhaps already doing this, because the very question, the distress, the dualistic mind that brought us into practice, that's where the juiciest koan. Each one of us have a different version of. every ongo period, so we had 2 ongo periods intensive practice a year, one in the fall, 100 days, and then one in the spring for 6 days. And during the fall one, everyone is required to carry a personal koan for that time. And so this time of year in August, everyone's sort of gearing up. Great, we have a tradition. And so, like, what is my koan going to be? And we'll often look at life conditions and what is really coming forward at that crossroads. So I want to tell a story about one of my students, Rishan, and I got permission to tell. She was excited. She said, yes, please share. Because it might give you a sense of how these emerge and what they look like in particular. So Rishan's retired. She's been practicing a long time. She was began in Zen in the 20s, and later on developed a Unitarian practice. She's of German ancestry and speaks German, and has been drawn to working with intergenerational trauma that has come out of the Holocaust. She has gone to Auschwitz in a bearing witness group, and also loves the natural world and has led wilderness retreats. She has a lot of overlapping interests that inform each other, and her name, Rishan, means way of the truth or way of the forest. But so while all this is going on, Rishan's developed, it's been with me 7 years, 7 or 8 now, but a lifetime of practice. And one of the struggles that kept coming up for her was, well, I'm going to go on this healing retreat, but then the Unitarians have this, and I can't do fishing. And there was always this tension. The split identity of, am I a Unitarian? Am I a Zen person? Am I German? Am I American? So many, speaking of intersectionality, this is Risha's life. And it was an enormous struggle because she'd feel guilty. Oh, I can't go to sesshin because I really feel that I need to be. This was modern life for many practitioners, right? They're competing opportunities. So enter the pandemic, 2020 there. And a few months into the shutdown, Rishan went out her back porch, her back deck, and she fell. And she hit her head on the concrete. And it wasn't blackout as far as I remember. It was subtle at first. It was soon clear several weeks into that, seeing doctors, that she had something radically shifted in her cognitive function. She could not do Zoom well. She could not track kind of social interactions. And there were a lot of things that just subtly but profoundly changed. And as you might imagine, enormous grief. There we are, already shut down. And the only way we can meet each other is this way. Many places can drive. So all of a sudden, this struggle about being here or there completely had to drop away so that she could. And it was a slow and long process and a lot of struggle. But what I noticed in Rishan was that this koan, if you will, was starting to resolve moment to moment, despite not wanting this illness that had no clear result, forward and backward. And anyone with a long-term health crisis knows what this is like, right? It's unclear. Doctors don't know. You gain a little, you lose a little. And in some ways, the trap of that is living into a future that you imagine going back before you got ill. So again, experiencing that division. But much dropped away, and she'd keep returning. This is it. This is it. But some part of her still really held out. And a year ago, so one of the things that we also do in our Sangha is dream work. I love to work with people's dreams because the most exquisite koans come out of the dreams. And she had this dream she shared in our group a year ago that was about a house. And it was, she said, in the dream, she was in a vacation house. And it was empty and everything was chaotic. And there were people running through, and a sense of fragility and sterileness and foreignness. It was a very disturbing dream. Came out of the group work on that koan was that it both exemplified how it felt to be a foreigner in her own body and also what was missing. And the koan that came from the dream she decided to carry forward was because it was a vacation home. That is a place that you don't, you're temporarily there and don't belong. She decided to carry a koan that was back from vacation. That's a very unusual Zen koan, right? It has meaning to her. It has meaning to her. And as she began to carry that koan back from vacation, this is my life. I don't go back. Houses show up in dreams a lot, actually, because they show up as places we dwell. Where is the mind dwelling? Where do I live or not live? And so that koan that came out of that dream began to radically shift the resistance Rishan was having to the condition in which. And it was only, we had another dream retreat a year later. We had a dream of serving a big feast to many people. Very different kind of flavor of. Still had some tension, but it was a kind of an arrival and a generosity, moving from the state she was in. And last week, the reason I brought it up tonight, it's fresh. We were looking at, well, what koan are you going to carry for these 100 days? And she said something like, I don't know, I'm still, now that I'm feeling better. She could go back to attending all these different things. But she said, I don't think I want to do that. Those times are done. And we were like, well, and we finally came up with a koan that from our precept study, which is one path. And she said, that's it. That's it. That's my koan. One path. So every time now she might open her date book and say, well, I could go to the Unitarians or I could do Sesshin, one path, whatever she chooses, which leaps clear of that dilemma. And thinking mind that's navigating, like, don't like, more of this, let's. Whatever she's doing is one path. It's very different than being in one place and divided from yourself. What happens when we overbook our life and have that tension missing. And we're never in one place at once. And we'll see what happens in 100 days. But I already see it changing. Rishan is a completely new person. He had an unwanted event that answered a spiritual question in a way that other things could not. Thinking mind could not get her to where she, even though she knew that was where she should. Can't force ourselves. But the teaching of an illness hurt it. So I just use that example as one of many. This is a work that's very much alive in our song, to what it means to meet the world with that mind of the koan, which is simply just a shift, subtle shift into interest, curious, open to something new. And what is most personal, so for Rishan, this is very personal. I didn't have that brain injury. When I talk with her, she knows what that is, day to day to day to day. Very personal. But the place that she has arrived is most universal, which is to be at peace with the world as it is. We completely let go. In fact, I'll give you another classical koan, actually, that is one of my favorites, which is just a simple statement from Yunmen that relates to sickness. Yunmen said, sickness and medicine arise together. The whole world is medicine. What is itself? Or another translation, who are you? What are you about? So this is a koan that we each resolve in some way. This is a great teacher. But, a little frustration is helpful. I say that because these koans, we don't want to feel stupid. And that's the first reaction people have from class. Oh, Backpocket koans are a little warm up. And the best ones come right out of our life and right out of the struggles that we experience and move us forward. They really are ambassadors to the world. And we have to let go, in a world that is full of unbridled outrage and opinions and analysis, sharp analysis. What a way to meet the world with the mind of the koan in our both social, human life, ecological life, and our personal lives, with a willingness to ask hard questions and stay there, to stay at the crossroads and to not assume, to really invite the ambiguity and the paradox of life that is always present, to let go of that attachment to 100% sureness and certainty, be willing to stay open with one's lived experience. This is what connects us to our deepest mind, to the mind that was pointed to in the Shin Ming this morning, and to one another, drops the barriers, and allows us to arrive out our protective shell and say, I'm willing to be here. What's mine to do? So may you each find a little pocket koan to carry in the summer. They're very light. You don't need to check them on the airplane. Free. And you can pull them out when you can't sit zazen on vacation and see what happens. Be curious and share them with the world. Thank you for inviting me this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Seido.
If it's all right with you, we'll ask for questions and comments. Any thoughts people have? Vicki.
Hi there, thank you for that, because I've always seen koans as some esoteric, thing, and, I've always said it, I just said it yesterday, I have enough puzzles in my life, I don't need more. I'm trying to figure out how to care for my mother with dementia, for example, that was a huge thing. Gosh, I don't need more, strife and more things. So I like how you tried to take it into that what I was doing was a koan. It's not some weird esoteric practice that it's just between you and the teacher when you kind of speak to the Zen master and say weird, So, thank you.
Thank you for sharing in that liberation. That's validating and inspiring. The koan of taking care of your mother is right there, right? Some koans are just silent. Some koans are just sitting with in a way that brings forward what is this or how, and we wait and stay open. One thing I'd just like to add to this, if it didn't come across in Rishin's story, is koans are not there to make us feel stupid or to be for some special few. Their sole intention is to connect us to our own deepest wisdom, our own inherent knowing of how to meet the world. And how could that be otherwise? So these pocket koans can be very helpful. Thank you for that.
Ken?
I'm curious. So do you do any testing with the koan, or is that not a part of how you?
Yeah. Well, there's probably three answers to that. When we do koans in the summer, we all share about them each week, and people hear each other. And so there's something about group koan work that's actually very helpful. That isn't the tradition, which is usually. And there's some teaching there's some check and balance that comes in there when people observe what other people are doing koan. For my formal students, if they take up a koan, yes. So we'll meet and they'll present some understanding and I will bring forward questions. I don't personally feel like I'm not tied to the Rinzai system in that I don't feel like I need to pass anybody on a koan. That's not my job. I want them to stay open like a painting. So for instance, a student just practiced with Mu for a couple of months and gave a talk on it, one of my formal students. And it was beautiful. There are a lot of openings and it's also not done. And that's the ideal. But I could see he also needed someone on the outside to move him in a direction he might not have gone up. So that's the check. But no one really in our Sangha passes the call. It's not useful in the context of it. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. That's interesting. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Mike.
I have one, sorry. I'm off camera, but the koan that I've been bringing with me around this summer is to deal with a lot of the busyness and going back and forth on, just like you're a student with the one path koan. Mine is, who am I doing this for?
Yeah. Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. And I imagine there's a lot of koans in this room, and that has juice, right? And it stops you. A koan should stop you in your tracks in that moment. It's already doing its job if it does. It's just the mind that's chattering on. I should do this, this, this. Who am I doing this for? And it pause. The pause. Who is this for? All who koans are useful. Who am I? Who is this? Or who are you? Right? This is great. May it bear fruit. And right now, I am the recipient of your koan. So for a moment, I'm one of your benefactress, or the other receivers. Lovely.
Hi, Seido. Thank you so much for being here.
Welcome.
Tell Rishin, thank you for letting me share her story. I'm glad to hear she's doing better.
Yeah,
And I kind of related just when you're saying that, she started, like, her path was very much trying to do a bunch of different things. And really the karma that I carry, like, for everything I choose to do, I think of the 10 things that I could be doing that I'm missing. And it reminded me of, I went on a trip with my mom and my aunt, which has its own karmic entanglements. But we took a hike in northern Spain on the El Camino.
Oh, beautiful.
Days of that, like, of course, I'm in this beautiful place. This is this epic experience, and I'm here with my family. But back home, I could be working in the orchard. All these things are happening.
Yeah.
And we go by this little restaurant, and on a chalkboard was, like, I think it's the last sentence of a Bukowski poem, and it says, "There is no other path, and there never was."
It's lovely.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you have the koan mind, they just pop up everywhere. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I was thinking of, a lot of words come to me, the ones that resonate with me don't always with the student, but I was thinking of that koan, or the impetus, we could be elsewhere, could be elsewhere, could be doing this. The koan of the moment is, I could be here. I could be here.
Yeah.
I could be here.
That's awesome.
Completely. Yeah, lovely. Right. And so it's generate when we work with dreams often. So we'll often do a particular kind of dream work I like to do and stuff. And then at the end, we'll just ask the group, what are the koans that are coming out of this dream? And we'll generate a whole lot of koans for the dreamer to listen to, often just one or two. And then they'll have some.
Anyone else? Questions? Comments? I really appreciated this, and I this is Pam, and I wish that I had a tape recorder so I can. Well, I guess we can listen to this
It's been
again.
recorded.
I want a little list of all those.
You can put them in your newsletter.
Yeah.
Pocket koans.
That'd be great.
Actually, how about a bowl in the entryway? They're like party favors.
Nice.
Paper.
That's a great
That was
idea.
really good.
Wonderful. Thank you, Pam. It's
Thank you
great.
very much. We really appreciate your time, as
Thank-
always. Thank you.
Okay, call and response.